The hotel lobby smelled like polished marble and expensive perfume. Soft piano music floated through the air, blending with the low murmur of conversations spoken in confident tones. Guests moved easily across the floor, designers, executives, tourists who never checked price tags. Everything about the place was designed to say you belong here, except for Rosa Mitchell. Rosa was a black woman in her early 40s, wearing a plain grey uniform with a name tag clipped just slightly crooked. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her posture straight from years of physical work. In her hand, she held a small envelope, cream-coloured, carefully folded, already creased from being checked too many times. She stood just inside the revolving doors of the Grand Astoria Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. Not as staff, as a guest. At least, that's what she was supposed to be. Rosa had worked at the Grand Astoria for 11 years. She cleaned the same floors guests glided across. She replaced towels no one noticed. She learned the rhythms of the building, when executives checked out, when celebrities demanded privacy, when staff disappeared into corners so luxury could feel effortless. She had never once stepped into the lobby in her own time, until today. She approached the front desk slowly, conscious of every movement. The clerk, a young white woman in a tailored blazer, glanced up, then immediately looked down again. "Yes?" she asked, already impatient. Rosa slid the envelope across the counter. "I'm here for an event inquiry," she said politely. The clerk barely glanced at the paper. "This desk is for guests," she said. "Staff services are in the back." "I'm not here as staff," Rosa replied calmly. "I received this invitation." The clerk finally looked at her properly, at her uniform, her hands, her shoes. Her smile tightened. "What event?" she asked. Rosa hesitated, then said the name. The clerk's eyebrows lifted slightly. "That event is private," she said. "Invitation only." "Yes," Rosa said. "That's why I have one." A security guard nearby, white, tall, already suspicious, stepped closer. "Is there a problem?" he asked the clerk, not looking at Rosa. "She says she's here for the awards dinner," the clerk replied, lowering her voice just enough. The guard finally turned to Rosa. "Ma'am," he said, "this hotel hosts high-profile guests. If you're working today, you need to use the service entrance." "I'm not working," Rosa said. "I'm attending." The guard looked at the envelope, then back at her. "Let's not make this difficult," he said. "You don't appear to be on the guest list." People nearby slowed down. A couple glanced over openly. Someone whispered. Rosa felt the familiar heat rise in her chest. Not anger, not shame, but the quiet exhaustion of being misunderstood in the same way over and over again. "I clean your executive suites," she said softly. "I've been here longer than most of the managers. I think you should check the list." The guard's expression hardened. "That's enough," he said. "You're causing a disturbance." A disturbance. Standing still, speaking calmly, holding an invitation. Rosa picked up the envelope slowly. "I'll wait," she said, "while you check." The clerk sighed and typed something into the system, clearly annoyed. Her face changed, then changed again. The guard leaned closer to the screen. The clerk swallowed. "Sir," she said quietly, "her name is..." "Highlighted." The guard frowned. "What does that mean?" The clerk stared at Rosa now, really stared. "It means," she said, "she's not just attending." The guard looked back at Rosa, confusion creeping into his voice. "What exactly is this event?" he asked. Rosa met his eyes, calm as ever. "It's an international humanitarian awards ceremony," she said. "And apparently, I'm the reason it's being held here." Silence spread across the lobby. The same space that had just denied her presence suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were listening. What no one at the Grand Astoria knew yet, what no one cleaning rooms or guarding doors had been told, was that Rosa Mitchell had spent years building something invisible to them. Something global. Something powerful. And the hotel that refused to recognize her as a guest was about to host the most important night of its history, in her honor. No one in the lobby spoke for several long seconds. The security guard stepped back first, clearing his throat as if trying to reset the moment. The clerk's fingers hovered uselessly above the keyboard. Around them, the quiet luxury of the Grand Astoria seemed suddenly fragile, like a stage set that had shifted under unexpected weight. Rosa Mitchell remained still. She had learned long ago that explaining too quickly only invited more doubt. "Ma'am," the clerk said finally, her voice noticeably softer, Could you please have a seat while I notify management?" Rosa nodded. "Of course." She sat on the edge of a velvet chair she had vacuumed hundreds of times before, smoothing her uniform automatically. Guests continued to pass through the lobby, unaware that the centre of gravity in the room had changed. As the clerk hurried away, Rosa's mind drifted, not to the embarrassment of moments earlier, but to the path that had brought her here. It had started years ago, long before awards or invitations. When Rosa first began working at the hotel, she took night shifts so she could care for her mother during the day. She listened more than she spoke. She noticed patterns: which guests stayed longest, which rooms were requested repeatedly, which visitors arrived exhausted rather than wealthy. She noticed something else too. Many of the guests came from places she recognized, countries where Rosa had family, friends, history, places marked by natural disasters, political instability, or quiet poverty that never made headlines. Rosa had grown up translating for her parents. Language, empathy, and patience came naturally to her. When she overheard conversations in hallways about delayed aid, misdirected donations, corrupt intermediaries, she paid attention. Years later, with nothing but a borrowed laptop and free Wi-Fi, Rosa began organizing. She didn't start a charity with her name on it. She didn't seek publicity. She built a network: cleaners, drivers, cooks, translators, nurses, people like her, spread across continents, all invisible to the systems that ignored them. They moved information faster than institutions. They verified needs before money arrived. They bypassed bureaucracy quietly. When a flood hit one country, Rosa's network already knew which neighborhoods needed help first. When medicine disappeared in another, she knew who could move it safely. Donations flowed through transparent channels she designed herself, tracked carefully, ethically. She did all of this after work, after long shifts, after aching hands, after being unseen all day. Inside the hotel, she was just a housekeeper. Outside it, she was a coordinator trusted by NGOs, governments, and international partners, many of whom had never met her in person. Back in the lobby, footsteps approached. The hotel manager arrived, white, polished, clearly unsettled. He extended his hand awkwardly. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, forcing a smile, "we sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding." Rosa shook his hand politely. "There was no misunderstanding," she replied calmly. "There was an assumption." The manager nodded, not arguing. "We were unaware," he said. "The awards committee booked the entire ballroom under strict confidentiality." "Yes," Rosa said. "They prefer the work to speak before the person." The manager gestured toward the elevators. "Please allow us to escort you to a private lounge." Rosa stood. As she walked past the front desk, the clerk avoided her eyes, then looked up again, braver this time. "Congratulations," she whispered. Rosa offered a small smile. This wasn't the moment she had imagined, not triumphant, not loud, just revealing. Because the hardest part hadn't been the denial at the door. It had been carrying the knowledge for years that the world often listens only when power announces itself, and that sometimes the most effective leaders are the ones no one bothers to question. And now, whether the hotel was ready or not, Rosa Mitchell's name was no longer invisible. It was already written into the history they were about to host. By evening, the lobby of the Grand Astoria no longer belonged to itself. News travelled fast once confidentiality lifted. Black sedans lined the curb. International guests arrived in waves: diplomats, non-profit leaders, medical coordinators, Journalists, people who moved through the world with quiet authority, earned not through wealth, but through trust. Rosa Mitchell watched it unfold from the mezzanine lounge the hotel had offered her, hands folded in her lap, expression composed. Staff members passed by repeatedly, each time a little more careful, a little more aware. The same uniform that had marked her as invisible that morning now seemed to confuse them. They didn't know how to place her anymore. Downstairs, the ballroom transformed. Crystal chandeliers were lowered, flags from different countries were arranged along the walls. A stage was built not for spectacle, but for testimony. The awards ceremony was not about celebration. It was about acknowledgement of work that rarely received it. Hotel management moved quickly, almost nervously, adjusting protocols, assigning senior staff, rehearsing apologies that were never quite spoken aloud. Rosa declined a wardrobe change. She kept her uniform on. Not as a statement, but as truth. When the ceremony began, the ballroom filled completely. Cameras rolled quietly, conversations softened. A host stepped to the microphone and welcomed the audience, speaking about resilience, coordination, and leadership that emerged from unexpected places. Then he said her name. "Tonight, we honor Rosa Mitchell." A hush fell over the room. Rosa stood and walked toward the stage as the applause began, not thunderous, not performative, but deep and sustained. People rose to their feet slowly, one by one, as if understanding was arriving in stages. She looked out over the room. White faces, black faces, people from every corner of the world. Many of them had worked with her for years without ever knowing what she looked like. When Rosa spoke, she didn't raise her voice. "I've cleaned rooms in this hotel for over a decade," she said calmly. "I've learned that systems work best when the people who hold them together are trusted." She paused. "This award isn't about me. It's about the people whose names are never on invitations, but whose hands move aid, medicine, and hope across borders every day." The camera cut briefly to the front row. The same security guard stood near the wall, posture rigid, eyes fixed on the stage. The clerk sat nearby, hands clasped tightly, watching Rosa with something like awe and shame. Rosa continued. "We don't need more grand gestures," she said. "We need fewer assumptions." Silence followed, then applause again, louder this time, longer. After the ceremony, guests gathered in small groups, speaking softly, thoughtfully. Journalists approached Rosa with questions she declined politely. "I've already said what matters," she told them. Later that night, as the ballroom emptied and staff began their quiet work, Rosa walked alone through the lobby. The same marble floors, the same scent of polish, the same piano music, but the air felt different. The hotel manager approached her once more. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, choosing his words carefully, "we would like to formally apologize and to ask if there's anything we can do." Rosa considered him for a moment. "Yes," she said, "you can remember this. Tomorrow and the day after." He nodded. Rosa stepped through the revolving doors and into the night. The hotel lights glowed behind her, no longer a place that defined her worth, but one that had been forced to recognize it. And somewhere inside, long after guests checked out and the lobby quieted again, a truth remained embedded in the walls. They had denied entry to a woman they never truly saw, and in doing so revealed exactly how much the world depends on people it overlooks every day. The morning after the ceremony, the Grand Astoria woke up differently. Housekeeping carts rolled across the floors as they always had. Breakfast trays were delivered. The piano in the lobby played the same soft melodies. On the surface, nothing had changed. But beneath that polished routine, the hotel carried a new awareness. Staff members greeted Rosa Mitchell by name now, not loudly, not performatively, but carefully, as if understanding had settled in overnight. Some smiled with genuine warmth. Others avoided her eyes, unsure how to reconcile the woman they had overlooked with the one now written into headlines around the world. Rosa returned to work that morning by choice. Not because she needed the job, not because she owed the hotel anything, but because she believed change was measured by what happened after recognition. In the executive suite she cleaned that day, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. On the table lay a folded newspaper, the headline visible even upside down. Local housekeeper honoured for global humanitarian leadership. Rosa didn't pick it up. She already knew the story. By midday, the hotel issued an internal memo. New training. Revised protocols. A commitment to listening, not just to guests, but to staff. It was written in careful corporate language, but the message was clear enough. Assumptions had consequences. Across the city, organizations reached out to Rosa openly now. Invitations arrived with titles and honorifics she had never used for herself. She accepted only a few, choosing partnerships over stages. Weeks later, the Grand Astoria hosted another event. This time, the invitation list included names from every department: cleaners, porters, kitchen staff, security, people who had never been asked to attend anything in that building before. Rosa stood quietly at the back, watching, not as a guest of honor, not as a symbol, as someone who had seen what was possible when visibility shifted. The hotel manager approached her near the end of the evening. "We've renamed one of our annual service awards," he said carefully. "With your permission." Rosa raised an eyebrow slightly. "It will recognize behind-the-scenes leadership," he continued, "people who make everything work without recognition." Rosa nodded once. "That's fine," she said. "Just make sure you keep it that way." She didn't stay long. Later, walking home through the city streets, Rosa passed murals, storefronts, bus stops, places where people lived their lives without chandeliers or awards. She thought about the network she had built, the work still waiting to be done, the messages she hadn't yet answered. The hotel would remember her. But more importantly, others like her were beginning to be noticed, not because they demanded it, but because someone had finally paused long enough to look. Rosa unlocked her door, stepped inside, and set her keys down gently. Tomorrow she would coordinate another shipment, answer another call, solve another problem quietly. The world would keep moving. And somewhere in a luxury hotel built on invisibility, a permanent reminder would remain. They once denied entry to a woman they thought was only a housekeeper. And in doing so, learned that the most powerful people in the room are often the ones who clean it, long before anyone thinks to invite them inside.